What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the second episode of the Morning Lift podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mike, and I'm here with my co-host and good friend, Ethan Diabru. And today we're going to talk to you about breaking old habits, forming new habits, getting better at time management and organization. So one of the first things that really comes to mind about habits is that we've been hardwired at such a young age to start developing habits. Brushing your teeth every day, making your bed, even something as simple as when you come home from school, you sit down and the first thing you do is you turn on the TV.
Right.
A lot of people don't think that that's a habit when it actually is. And they've done studies that show, a lot of the habits are automatic reactions to your environment. Like you get off the school bus, you walk inside your house. The first thing you do is you turn right into the living room to turn on the TV. It would be different if you got off the school bus and your friend caught you and said, "Hey man, why don't you come over real quick?" And you didn't go inside your house. Instead, you went into your friend's house. And because you went to your friend's house, you're not going to walk into the living room and just turn on the TV.
Right.
So you're hardwired to do these things, to perform these actions based on your environment. Sometimes we don't even know that we have habits.
Yeah, so basically we're living inside of a simulation. And we're nothing but the living personification of an Excel spreadsheet. We're just if-then statements. Okay, so we...
What?
All right, but like...
Off the grid.
Okay, sorry. Just personal note of an existential crisis. No, but, all right, well, if you want to break it down, honestly, to that, you could. Like Mike was saying, if you're in X situation, then it'll produce Y result. So maybe you should start questioning what situations are bringing about habits that you don't like about yourself or something that you want to change. Like, I think a common habit that should be talked about more is addiction, like smoking, just cigarettes, right? Cigarettes is something that we see every day and we've kind of become desensitized to.
Yeah.
And it's just that we just see people doing it every day and we don't even question it. And we should question it and they should question it. Because cigarette smoke affects more than the person who is smoking. Because, as we've learned as time goes on with science and new studies, is that there's secondhand smoke, there's third-hand smoke, and secondhand smoke is worse than actually smoking the cigarette itself because we don't have the filter. So, we should be concerned too when other people are smoking around us or if you have children around. So, rather than just be angry at someone when they're smoking cigarettes, maybe try to empathize with them and think about what they're going through and the habits that they have that encourage cigarette smoking. Because I don't think I've met a cigarette smoker that hasn't even tried to quit at least once. Everyone wants to quit, but it seems that almost no one's ever really able to follow through. Like, the success rate's really low, and that's something that should be questioned, how to increase that success rate. So I think where it starts with any good habit, or just breaking any habit in general, like to form good ones, it starts with self-awareness. So when you are trying to start a new habit or break an old one, you have to take a second to take stock of what you're doing, what it is exactly that you're trying to accomplish by changing this habit or creating a new one, and how are you going to do it. You have to dig to the why,
You have to audit yourself. You
Right.
have to really, one of the big things that I see today, especially from our generation, and I was surrounded by it in college, is people just complain nonstop. They complain about their circumstances. They complain about how they're doing in school, how they're doing in their love life, how they're doing in just any aspect of life. They just start complaining. And most times these people don't stop to audit themselves and go, okay, what am I doing on a day-to-day basis that is giving me these results? Like, if I'm doing X and getting Y, okay, don't blame Y, the results. Blame X. Blame what you're doing. Look at what you're doing and see what you can do to turn it around. I mean, and you're right. You have to look at the why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing?
Right.
And if you're not getting the results that you want, then clearly you're doing that reason for some sort of like, I don't know, you're filling a void or whatever. It's, you're just, you don't have the motivation to get up and do something. You're just lazy.
right. Like, I mean, if you dived into water covered in chum that's shark infested, like, you wouldn't. I mean, at least you shouldn't be
You won't.
surprised. I definitely won't. Terrified of sharks. You heard it first on the morning lift. But like, you shouldn't be surprised by the results that you produce because everything is as simple as cause and effect. So you have to dig into the why, like why you're doing a particular action. Like self-awareness is key, and whether it be studying your relationship, like why are you always fighting, like maybe you're just hungry. Like, you know, like there's some couples that get hangry and they're just like, why am I always mad at 12 p.m.? Like, you know, like you have to change your actions in order to change your results.
And that's another thing. Habits can go as far as the way you treat people on a daily basis.
For sure.
Yeah, like how you treat people on a daily basis, that's a habit. The habits just kind of, they happen once we get comfortable.
Right.
And they happen once we sort of get into a groove, we get into a rhythm. And that's why, in the gym, the biggest thing is to be consistent, because at the end of the day, like, whether you realize it or not, what's going on inside your body when you work out that's what's creating the habit for you. Sure, you might say like, man, I've been going to the gym for 2 weeks straight, every morning, on time, never late, just going in and crushing it, and you turn around and you go, man, I love the gym. It gets me so pumped up. That's part of the reason why it's becoming a habit. But at the same time, the chemicals that are being produced in your body when you exercise, the dopamine that's being released when you work out, whether you realize it or not, your body is waking up in the morning and going, come on, let's get to the gym.
Right.
Because it wants to feel good.
Right.
It wants to exercise and get uncomfortable. And that's why it's becoming a habit. So you're getting excited about that stuff for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And because your hormones are going off, the dopamine that's getting released, it makes you feel good. So that's why things like that become a habit. That whole like, it takes 21 days to build a habit. They've done studies that showed it actually takes 21 to 500 plus days to build a habit.
Right.
It just depends on the cognitive demanding of that task, I guess.
Right. You have to prioritize your habits.
Right. You have to prioritize it. You have to consistently do it every single day. And I think that's where the 500-day span comes into play, is when you don't do it consistently every day. You kind of like do it one day here, do it the next day, and then you don't do it for 2 more days, whatever.
Right.
But the biggest thing I see today is like phones, social media.
Oh yeah.
Man, people are, like you brought up addiction earlier.
It's an addiction.
People are addicted to social media. It's insane how much time people spend on their phones. Like if you walk into a restaurant and you see a couple sitting at a table eating dinner, they're not conversing with each other. Like 9 times out of 10, they have their heads in their phones.
Right.
And it's so mind blowing that you sit there and you go, what happened to just conversation? What happened to people standing in a crowded subway? And I mean, probably in the city, no one ever like stood in a crowded subway and talked to one another. But you don't have conversations with strangers anymore. Everyone's so glued to their phones.
You actually don't know this story, but I did that one day. So like, I had I swear to God that wasn't a plug or a setup for this. Like he really doesn't know the story. Like I would have to commute to the city for work because various clients have to go on audits, whatever. But one day I just got a little frustrated because I'd look around on my train cart and I'd see everyone just dived into their cell phone or whatever, and I'm like, it's so strange to sit across from another person and not say a word to them. Like how do you sit next to someone? How do you sitting across versus sitting next to someone for an hour and a half as you're commuting into the city, and you just don't say a word? Like you don't even know their name. I think that's strange. So
you just awkwardly make eye contact.
Right. Yeah. So I decided one day to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I mean it when I said it before that I was an introvert, but even though I'm an introvert, I have like a curiosity to me, and I'm just curious to see what would happen if I like break the norm on something or if I challenge something. So I there was a girl sitting next to me, and she looked like she was studying on her phone, and there was an older woman sitting across from me. So I started conversing, and as it like turned out along the way, like first she was a little like resistant to talking, the typical New Yorker suspicion, like what does this guy want, like, but we eventually got past that and made like a human connection. Like we were talking, and I found out that she worked at the United Nations. I thought it was incredible, like for someone in their like mid 20s to be working at the United Nations, like so inspired. Like she works on the train, like studies on the train, trying to get new certifications to better herself. And then the woman sitting across from me was like one of the biggest attorneys in the state, like for real estate dealing. So like I'm sitting with her, and we're just connecting. We're having a story. We're talking about like I went to Spain, and it happened that the person sitting across from me had also gone to Spain, and we connected on a deeper level because we broke out of that habit and we stepped away from our addiction of the cell phone. Like,
and that's how you network too with people.
Right.
Half the time, you network, you talk to people.
Right.
You make conversation, and then you find out shit like, wow, I have like the most powerful attorney sitting in front of me, and I have someone from the UN. Like, you never know, and that could open doors for you as a person, like career-wise too. You never know.
Yeah, it could. I mean, like, it's weird. Like, I often think about what I can do to impact other people's lives in a positive way, and like one of the simplest things you can do is like just give a compliment. Like, just do something nice. Hold the door for someone. Like, sometimes I'll like randomly buy the person behind me coffee, just give them a smile, and like sincerely wish that they have a good day, because it's so easy to get lost in all the negativity of the world, and
and have your head down into a screen.
Right, and like you get stuck in that negative rut, like that routine that you want to break. Like, we all have, if you're a working person, you have a routine. Like, you have to be up by X time to make it to work by Y time, and then you leave at Z time, and
you gotta
go
catch the
home.
Train, or you gotta like beat traffic.
Right, you either leave at the last second and rush through traffic, or you're the guy who gets there like 20 minutes early. Like we all have habits. Some of them we're forced to do, and some of them we want to do. And it's funny that it's often the ones that we want to do are the ones that we neglect. So, Mike, how did you really form your positive habit of going to the gym?
Yeah.
Or any positive habit, for that matter.
Well, I just want to go back real quick because you brought up how, just doing something nice for someone. I remember Amy and I were driving back from school. I think it was our winter break.
Okay.
And we were driving back from Potsdam, and we stopped at a rest stop, and I was in line because I was getting like trail mix or something for the road.
Right.
This is an 8-hour car ride, and we were like, I think we were like 5 hours in. Like, I just needed something, so I was getting trail mix and a water, and there was a woman standing in front of me, and she was a military officer. She was, I guess she was on base upstate or something. Because there's a ton of forts up near where I go to school, and so she's standing there, and she's going to buy a soda and like a thing of M&Ms. So the woman rings her up, and she goes to pull out her wallet, and she didn't have enough cash on her. Like, the total was like, how in rest stops they like inflate the shit out of the prices.
Right.
Like, a bottle of water costs like $4.
That's crazy.
And so whatever her price was, like, she didn't have enough money. I think she only had like $2 on her. And so she looked back to try to find an ATM, and like she looked scrambled. So what I did was I tapped her shoulder, and I said, "Don't worry about it." And I stepped in front of her because I didn't want her to like give that like choice of like, no, like, don't worry about it, I got it. Right. So I just kind of like, I was a little assertive about it, and I put my stuff on the counter. I said, ring her stuff up with my stuff, and I ended up paying for what she had bought. And she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm trying to get home for my kids, and because they don't have a babysitter, and like she just didn't have time to stop at an ATM, and it's just like little things like that. It's not it wasn't grandiose,
Right.
but it's just little things like that that really made my day. And then the guy behind me looked at me and was like, that was a really nice thing for you to do. And the guy said it in such a way that I think he was shocked because
Kindness has become so rare.
yeah, like he looked at me and he's like, you're kind of young, and people our age, I think they've reached a level of selfishness where they kind of like they neglect other people and other people as like human beings,
Right.
So that was kind of cool to do that for someone. I enjoy doing stuff like that for people because it makes you happy.
Right. So make kindness one of your daily routines, like a daily habit. Just
one person a day. Just do something nice for one person.
It really doesn't take a lot. Like even if it's like your parents or your sibling or something. Like there've been days like I've come home from work and I just like exhausted and I don't feel that great and I'm a little like grumpy. But like my brother would like randomly surprise me and he'll like it's like, oh here I picked up like some chocolate chip cookies because I know you like them and I'm like like just such a simple gesture can go such a long way in the grand scheme of things. So like kindness is a simple habit. So
So getting back to your original question, one of the biggest. Oh no, you asked the habit of getting to the gym in the morning, right?
right.
All right, so I never had a problem going to the gym on a daily basis. It was getting my ass out of bed in the morning and making that the first thing that I did, because up to that point, all I did was I would get up, go downstairs, make a cup of coffee, make breakfast, watch the news or whatever, and then like maybe 2-3 hours later, then go to the gym. But I started to realize how sluggish I started to feel.
Right.
Because
wake up time.
Right. So like when you wake up, that's when your hormone levels are the highest. Your testosterone's up there. Everything's up there. So when you wake up in the morning, you might, trust me, there are days where I get up and I'm just not about it.
Yeah.
But you get up, you look yourself in the mirror, and you go, you're not that tired. Like just get up, go, start moving. And then usually I find myself by the time I walk downstairs and I'm washing my face in the bathroom that I'm up, I'm awake, I'm moving. But so when you get up in the morning, your hormone levels are the highest.
Right.
And your insulin is low. It's at 0, or at least it should be.
Because you like fasted.
Right. So like when you like your 8 hours of sleeping, you're fasted at that point.
I mean, 8 hours for some people, sure.
For some people, yeah. But so your insulin level's 0. So when your insulin's at 0 at a baseline like that, you tend to be sharper. You tend to be more like quick on your feet, and you don't feel groggy. And I find for me, I'm a lot more effective that way. But what I used to do was I used to eat a huge breakfast. It was like an 800 to 1,000 calorie breakfast.
Oof.
Yeah, it was like, it was something like 8 to 10 egg whites.
Oh my God.
And then I would have a cup or a cup and a half of oatmeal with a banana.
I thought you were about to say almonds. Oh, God.
a whole banana. And I used to throw like exactly 32 grams of peanut butter in there. I used to measure everything out because like when I was doing my weight cut, I had to measure everything to be on point.
For your macros.
Right. So that's what I would have for breakfast. Plus I'd have like a cup of coffee with like some stevia sweetener in there, right?
Okay.
And then, but all of that, the oatmeal, the banana, the sweetener, would raise my insulin levels up. And then by the time I got to the gym, my insulin levels would crash. And so when your insulin goes down, that's the midday crash that you feel.
Right.
When you're at the office and you're like, oh my God, I'm just so groggy, I'm so tired. That's what you're feeling, is you're feeling your insulin levels start to drop.
Mm.
So I'm like, all right, I was never a fasting type person. I was never into like, not eating all like for
breakfast
half the
most
day.
important meal of the day.
Yeah, right, exactly. I was kind of like, breakfast, you got to have it. And
is it a habit or is it a lie? Like, like
And I used to fall into the trap of your metabolism. Like, you got to get it going, and the way to do that is have something as soon as you wake up.
Right.
2 years later, after some research and some reading, I found out that's not the case.
Right.
Your metabolism doesn't need to get kickstarted, nor does it actually get kickstarted when you have the first meal of the day. Like, especially, yeah, your metabolism starts working because it's starting to digest the food that you ate,
Right.
but it's not necessarily like any faster or any slower. So, but I was never, after doing some reading, whatever, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try this fasting thing. But what I would do is I started pushing my workouts later in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd fast all day till noon. And for anyone who's never done this before, it's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
To go 14, 16 hours without eating, right? So like 10 p.m. to 12 o'clock or 2 p.m., the next day, that's really hard. When you're so hardwired to just eat as soon as you get up.
And breakfast, lunch, you have your
Right.
snack by then, a coffee and a donut.
Right. So it's really hard to get into that, but I trucked through it 2 or 3 days. I got into the groove of, oh, this isn't that bad. I started noticing, because I did this while I was in school, while I was in college.
Okay.
I started to notice I was a lot sharper in classes. I was a lot more focused. I felt better throughout the day. I felt lighter.
Right.
Obviously, because I haven't had any food in me yet, but I felt lighter. I felt I felt a lot better. But then I'd eat at like 12 or 2 o'clock. I'd eat a meal, and then I'd go train like an hour later. Same thing. Your insulin goes up, then your insulin drops, and you're like, crap. Like, now I really do feel, I don't feel any different. So then I thought, all right, let me train in the morning. So then I started.
So training in the morning started for you because you noticed that you weren't feeling right.
Right.
So you made that adjustment.
Right. I noticed that the times of day that I was training, there were days where I'd feel good, but then there were days where I didn't feel so good. I had more not so good days than I did good days.
Right.
So
So that's a sign that you need to change at that point.
Right. And the biggest thing to changing a habit or forming a new habit is becoming self-aware and being aware that, okay, this is how I feel, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm getting from it. So what I did was I said to myself, all right, I'm going to try getting up in the morning and working out without eating, but it's got to be the first thing that I did when I get up in the morning.
Right.
So I'd get up around like 4:30, have a cup of coffee, like a black coffee.
Yeah.
Because they say that black coffee, tea, water, that doesn't break your fast. So if anything, the caffeine actually helps you in the gym because of the proposed effects that caffeine has on.
It's a stimulant.
It's a stimulant, and
Yeah.
it also it spares the glycogen that's in your muscles at least for the first 15 to 30 minutes of exercise.
Right.
So you're not really burning through carbs right away, and because of that, you can kind of get away with a little more volume in your training.
Okay.
But anyway, that's a different topic. So I get up, have a black coffee, then I go work out. First workout felt like shit, but it was a mental thing because all I could think about was, oh my God, I need food. How can I do this without food? And then I had heavy squats programmed for that day.
Right.
I'm like, how the hell am I going to get onto this bar and squat this amount of weight? And I haven't had like a single carb or a single fat or protein. But by like the end of the week, I was like, man, I feel good. I feel sharp. I feel stronger. And the strength actually came from when you get up in the morning, your hormone levels are at their highest.
So what do you think changed first? Was it your mentality about how you felt going to the gym in the morning? Like you got adjusted to that feeling like, okay, working out on an empty stomach, really not that bad? Or do you think it was just you started to feel better and then you mentally adapted and started to appreciate working out on an empty stomach?
It was a little bit of both. It was actually, it was the mental game and the physical game at the same time. I started to feel better, and at that same time, that's when my mentality shifted. It was just like, okay, I actually feel pretty good. I'm very sensitive to physiological changes,
Right.
so it doesn't take me a while for things to click. Like if I notice something's off because of something I did in that moment, I pick up on it pretty quickly. So as soon as I started to feel good in the gym, I'm like, wow, I'm halfway through my workout and I feel like I'm on fire right now. That moment was when I went, shit, maybe I can do this without food. So I just continued on doing it, and I just realized like I feel better. My digestive system was actually like thanking me for it, because I can't. And I found out that like I went back and forth. So after doing that for a couple months, I'm like, all right, let me go back to the, eat 6 to 8 meals every 3 hours, and that whole like cookie cutter
Right.
thing that everyone follows. I actually found out that I have a harder time digesting food and nutrients when I wake up, shove a meal down my face, go work out, eat 3 hours later, 3 hours after that, 3 hours after that, and 3 hours after that, so on and so forth. I found out that I'm not digesting this food properly.
You're better off just fasting.
I'm better off fasting, because when you fast, there's this thing that happens with your cells called, I think it's autophagy or something. I'm totally butchering that, but so your cells go through this breakdown process,
Okay.
and they break themselves down, and they actually heal themselves.
Oh wow.
So by not eating food, and you go into this air quote catabolic state, it allows your cells in your body a chance to repair and get things through its system, and then by noon, 2 o'clock, whatever, you start to get hungry, and you're like, all right, I'm ready for food.
Right.
And then I also figured out that like we have, just like we have circadian rhythms
Okay.
with our sleeping,
Yeah.
we also have circadian rhythms with our metabolisms. So those people who are always like, yeah, I'm not a breakfast person. When I get up, I'm not really hungry. And I don't feel like eating anything until like 11, 12 o'clock. Those people, they're very in tune with their rhythm, that circadian rhythm.
Right.
So what I found for myself was like, wow, I can actually get through like not eating for 14, 16 hours and feel fine. And I think I found a better rhythm for myself. And you just find you're a lot sharper. But for me, it was, I started to feel good, and then the mentality switched over, and that's when it just started to become a habit. And I feel off when I don't go to the gym in the morning. Like first thing when I wake up, like here's my ritual.
Okay.
I wake up, I go downstairs, I make a small cup of coffee because I don't want to drink too much coffee.
Okay.
So I make like a small 8-ounce cup of coffee. I take my vitamins, and if I really need it, after I drink my coffee, I'll throw down some pre-workout,
Mm-hmm.
like 1 or 2 scoops, and then I'm off.
Okay.
I'll take like maybe a nitric oxide pill or something to help blood flow, but I take the sups, go to the bathroom, and then I go to the gym.
Right.
And then when I come home, it's usually 7:30 by the time I get home, and I just don't eat until, and it frees you up too. I mean, the amount of shit that I get done from 8 to noon, it's insane.
Right.
Like you sit down and there's a level of focus that I think people haven't like unveiled, and it allows you to get into.
You're sleeping in the Matrix.
It allows you to get into this state
Which
of
pill
deep
will you
work.
take?
Yeah,
The
right.
nitric oxide pill.
I just take a bunch of nootropics and then
Oh God. Yeah. You're woke.
yeah. But,
Like, so what do you think's the hardest part of making that change, though? Do you think it was the thought process leading up to the change, or the change itself?
Well, for me, I'm always an overthinker.
Mm.
I think way too much. So
So how do you combat that habit?
being self-aware,
Yeah.
being aware in the moment, like, all right, Mike, you're thinking way too damn much about what you're trying to do, or what you're trying to like. for example, perfect example, this podcast took me way too long to actually get it going because I was constantly, it was revolving in my head ideas and the evolution of the idea itself.
Right.
Like you remember, dude, I sent you a snap last October
Yeah.
about, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this, and it took me, granted we had distance, but we could have easily like got on the phone and recorded phone calls and just started going with it. But like I overthink things,
Yeah.
and so for me it was the hardest thing was, all right, first get out of the habit of overthinking,
Right.
which I still haven't completely gotten out of, but being self-aware in the moment helps. And then it was okay, actually just try it. Just do it. Because
do it.
Right, you're so accustomed to something that you don't want to get out of it, because if you get out of it, your brain sort of sends off these signals like, what are you doing? Like, dude, like you're putting us in danger. You're not driving the way you normally drive to work.
Right.
Like what's going on? So just try it. Like that was the thing for me, is just do it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean that's how I got into, training at the gym so early in the morning, and it's not for everybody. Some people they train better at night. Some people they have no problem training
for
midday.
sure.
But for me, I really learned a lot about my body when it came to nutrition, and that versus my training. I can't eat 3 meals and then go work out for 2 hours. I just feel too bogged down. So that was how I got into that habit. It was just doing it and then being self-aware so that you realize, okay, I feel good, physically and mentally, and then from that point, it's just a matter of consistency.
Right. So, like, I would say that self-awareness is the most important tool in your arsenal for change. Because with self-awareness, like, taking stock of who you are and where your shortcomings are, and I get it. It's really hard to face yourself like that. It's hard to look in the mirror and be like, okay, like, maybe I'm not as great as I think. Okay. But, like you know, like, we're not saying you're narcissistic, but you are. No, okay. But, like, what we're saying is take a minute to question what you're doing and why. Like, don't be a creature of habit. Be a creature of routine.
Yeah.
Like, routines that you were cognizant of and you created because you wanted to improve your life. So, by training self-awareness, you gain a voice. That voice inside you. You know, instead of, like, oh, like, why do I have to get up now? Like, my alarm's going off. Like, hit snooze. Oh, let me just hit snooze. Like, train that voice out. You don't want that voice anymore. Start training the voice. All right, the alarm's up. Let's go. Like, I try to put my mind in, like, when I'm faced with an objective, I try to put it in the simplest terms possible, because overthinking is the enemy, and I've done that. Like, we all overthink things, and we make things more difficult than they need to be. So when I find myself in that position where I'm, like, unable to act, you need to train your self-awareness, because it allows you to empower yourself and give you that internal voice of strength that allows you to do the difficult thing. So instead of the morning when you hear your alarm go off and you're just like fuck, like, this is my life, I have to go to work, I have to work for 9 hours, I hate this. Like, start conditioning yourself out of that. Like, don't get up because you have to. Get up because you want to.
Well,
so
that makes it even harder, is when you get up and you have to be somewhere that you absolutely hate.
Right.
That makes it 10 times harder.
For sure. And, like, that's another thing that's a habit that can change. Like, your job, like where you currently work, is a habit. Like, you have to show up at the same time, you talk to the same people every day, whatever. But you may not enjoy it, but we get caught in that rut of just comfort and complacency that it makes us unwilling to change, like unwilling to reevaluate things. I'm like, to me, like, a job's a job. Like,
oh yeah,
you can apply somewhere else, like, probably get close to the same pay, if not better pay, and just take a fresh start. But people get comfortable where they are, and they worry too much, they overthink it too much. But you shouldn't have to overthink your happiness and just your overall well-being. Like, it's very innate, it's very simple, but we put so many obstacles in the path of our happiness by overthinking them. So, like,
and
all right,
people don't even realize it.
no,
either.
they don't, and it's because you haven't taken that moment. Just be aware. Like, I think like a useful tool to kind of start the basis of getting like self awareness is just taking like the Myers Briggs personality test. There's free versions of it online, so you can get like kind of classified into 16 different categories. But it gives you a sense as to who you are. Like I score as like introvert, intuitive type, thinking, and judgmental. So INTJ, right? So that's one of the 16 different categories you can score into. And when I was reading up about that personality type, it's not like your horoscope. Like, it's not an accident. Like, this was the test was originally created by a couple psychologists. There was a mother-daughter team, and they were able to identify these traits that help separate people in different categories. So, like, when I read that I was an INTJ for the first time, and I was digging through, and I'm like, wow, this really does make a lot of sense for me. And from gaining knowledge in the Myers-Briggs personality test, I got a little more knowledge about myself, and then I could start applying, like, oh man, like, I wonder what Mike is. Like, I'm curious if Mike is also an INTJ, or I don't know, maybe he's an INFJ, and like, how do I communicate better with that person to improve that relationship? But like, whatever, like, just taking that first step to just like, wow, like, this is who I am. And if you're reading about it and you don't like what you're reading, like, maybe you can start taking action to change things. Like, I've given the test to pretty much all my friends, and at one point I got a little crazy and I graphed it out.
Which you so gladly sent us all of the graphs.
Yeah, basically I was scouting out who could be my best friend. I was kidding, but INTJ, overthinking things. No, but like, I don't know, like, it's interesting because it gives you a new perspective and lets you think in a new way, so you can approach old problems with a better solution,
Yeah.
So, like, taking that first step to just get to know yourself is great. So from there, getting to know yourself, you can conquer yourself. Because to me, like, the thing that holds most people back from making a positive change in their life, it's self-doubt. And self-doubt is the beast, like, it's always there in the back of your mind, just waiting for you to kind of just ease off the gas a little bit. Like, like, oh, maybe I should take a break today. And like, then, day turns a couple weeks, turns to a month. Like, it just wants you to rest. And like, I imagine that, like, for myself. Like, I just imagine, like, like someone's breathing down my neck. Like, someone's just waiting for me to stop. Like, waiting for me to give up. So, they could laugh or something. And like, whatever. Like, you gotta force yourself to keep pushing forward, push beyond the self-doubt, conquer it. Like, when I'm facing self-doubt, like meditation is a very useful tool for me. I'm like, I'm not saying like I burn incense and, use chakra crystals,
Buddha.
but like, I'll just take some time, close my eyes and think, like, see what I want, what's in the way, and how do I get there. So using that very, very simple approach, like breaking down all problems to the root of what they are, to the simplest form, allows you to identify the path to conquering them and conquering self-doubt and changing that internal voice into a voice that's powerful for you. Like, some days, like, I'll hear, like, I like the author Jocko Willink, right? He Navy SEAL, led one of the most decorated teams in Iraq, and like just an overall like fascinating person. And he cracks me up a lot because he reminds me of my uncle a bit, because he's also military, sergeant major in the Marine Corps. And when I read Jocko's like tweets or stuff, like I hear my uncle's voice, and it cracks me up because like he does exactly what my uncle does, and like what I do. He just breaks things down to the simplest form. Like, someone will ask questions like, oh, hey, how do I get up early and study? And the simplest answer to that is...
Get up early and study.
Right! Like, like a lot of these questions that are holding us back, they're really, really, really simple. Like you don't need someone else to give you the power or the permission to make a change in your life.
Yeah. And I also think one of the biggest things that holds people back is this image that they think that not they have of themselves, but what they think society has of them.
Yeah.
Like, you see it a lot. It happens a lot with teenagers. they think who they are is not because of who they are, it's because of what society thinks they are.
Right.
It's like they base their identity around their peers, and so you really do, like, you have to learn about who you are, and don't be afraid to, like, express that. Don't be afraid to
Just be yourself.
just be yourself. Do things that you enjoy and really find out who you are as a person. And some people will show up and some people will leave you. But the people who show up and stay, those are the true people in your life that are really going to make, that's going to make or break you, because because they are true and they
Right.
are authentic, they do have some leverage on you. But yeah, you have to figure out who you are, what makes you tick. Don't try to follow someone else, and break things down in the simplest manner. It's like I used to overthink. Question like, oh, how do I get up early and study? That used to bog me down, because I used to sit there and go, okay, how do I get up early and study? Okay, if I go to bed at this time, I get X amount of hours of sleep, but if I do this, if I back it up a half hour, I get an extra half hour of sleep. And then if I get up and then I just set my books up the night before, and like you just start,
Yeah.
it gets great. Just get your ass out of bed,
And do it.
get your backpack, open it up, crack the book open, and study for 2 hours before you go to school.
Right. And like, don't tell yourself that classic college lie is like, well, maybe I'm just better off sleeping for 2 hours. Cramming does nothing. I'm like, you're wrong. All right. Cramming's how I survived college. All right.
I'm not a crammer. I couldn't cram.
No options. When you have no options, you must do. Like,
That's true.
I had no time. I'm like, when I studied or did homework, like, it was a time crunch, and I crammed, and I did what I had to do, like, sacrifice to survive and to prosper. But
yeah. So what was your biggest habit change, or
just getting out of my own head, like something that I was conditioned to believe at a young age was that I was stupid, and it came from somebody that I loved. As a child, it was one of my parents. It was my father, and my father would constantly put me down and tell me that I wasn't good enough, that I was stupid, I was jackass, moron, whatever, right? But like, especially when you're a kid, you don't understand at its very core why. Like, why is someone I love saying that to me? And I'm like, wow, like maybe they're right. Like, you hear it. Like, you hear it so often, and you just start to think, I'm like, wow, like, maybe I am just dumb. Like, because it didn't matter what I did, it was still never good enough. And, like, I don't, like, today, like, fuck that. Like, I don't think I'm dumb. Like, like, I work really hard to be what I was. But, like, I lived in a way where I tried to prove him wrong. Like, I was living for a ghost at the time. Like, I was constantly, like, I'd work harder in school because I wanted to prove to him, I'm like, I'm not stupid. Like, I could show you what I'm made of, And, I bring home an A, whatever, get straight A's in class, like, but it still wasn't good enough. One of the shittiest things he ever said to me was, if you line up 10 idiots and you pick the smartest of those 10 idiots, what are you left with? Smartest idiot. So that kind of mental space that I grew up with, he was constantly the obstacle in my path. And I was living to prove him wrong. I was living in a way that I was angry, and it affected me. It was more than just the insults. Like, it affected my personal happiness. It affected my ability to reach out to other people and make a meaningful connection, because I'm like, wow, it felt like my own parent, like, hated me. Like, that I wasn't even good enough for my blood. So I had to start facing myself and conquer that part of me that thought, you're not good enough. So that by far is the biggest obstacle that I face in my life. And, like, the biggest habit, biggest thought process, it took a very long time to change. And what it boiled down to in the end was that I learned that no one else's opinion of me matters except my own. And when it's taken from a place of humility and where ego is put aside, that's true. Like, you don't want to be narcissistic and shut out the voices of people that care about you, but you have to know when to shut out the voices, because people who care about you may not always know what's best for you. Like,
No, and they'll be the first ones to sort of
Shut
you
you
down.
down.
Yeah.
you know, like, start a podcast. Like, why are you going to start a podcast?
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to say? Like,
Just because
there's hundreds of them out there.
Yeah, and just because they don't, 9 out of 10, it's because they don't understand. So when you start uncovering like your true self, who you are, you start getting out of your own head. Like that's a hard thing to go through, man. Like I went through something similar, but it wasn't so much like my father was never directly, and I don't think he ever meant it in such a way like your father did it. It's a horrible thing, but like, my father would always, anytime I'd screw up on something, it was always like it was always like a 10 on the Richter scale. Like
Right.
it was the worst thing, and it made you feel like shit. It made you feel like you weren't good enough. And for the longest time, I walked around thinking, wow, like I'm really not good enough. I'm not that smart. I'm just an average kid doing average things. And it really, like,
It eats at you.
it eats at you. And people think like, oh, he's young enough, she's young enough. They don't really get it. They do, and it makes an impact on
Yeah.
you at such a young age. But like being self-aware and learning who you are and getting out of your own head and shutting people out of your head, that's a big thing.
Right.
Because, yeah, like I said, the people closest to you, they're going to be the first ones to let you down. They're going to be the first ones to not, and it, like I said,
It's not always intentional. It's not always
Right.
coming from a bad place.
it's
but-
mostly it's coming from a place of misunderstanding. So
Right.
when you're ready to open yourself up and find out who you are and break previous habits and start creating new ones that lead to your success, be prepared to be misunderstood.
Right.
And be prepared to get the flack that comes from being misunderstood.
Right. Like, like my self-awareness developed first out of heartache and then heartbreak. So, the relationship that I had growing up, it broke my heart, and it changed me for it. Because when you experience pain at a younger age, it kind of gives you this new sense of awareness to what the world could be like. Like, it's not all Disney movie princess and princesses. Like, it's just not what the world is. And then my self-awareness developed more and more as I read. And things like, especially like reading history, like I get a lot of people who are bored by history, and that's just because you have boring teachers. But like,
Dude, I had the greatest history professors.
and that's great. But like for me, just like
I
reading
love
history, it really helped put everything in perspective for me about like, like sure, like some things at home are tough, but there have been people throughout times that have things so much worse than us. I remember being in the 4th grade and reading about the Holocaust for the first time, and like at the time I was in a Catholic school, and I was, I was religious, like that was my upbringing. I'm not so religious today, but like it was such a shocking thing to read, like being 8 years old and just reading like 7 million Jewish people perished in the Holocaust. Like that sentence is like seared in my brain forever. And then as I've aged with time, like it led me to reading. It's definitely like tied for like the best book I've ever read in my life. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl, and it's essentially the first-hand tale of this psychologist, Viktor, who went through the Holocaust. And it's not so much a history retelling, it's a psychology retelling of the Holocaust. So he dug into like the most primal aspects of the Holocaust, because that's what it was. Like the conditions were animalistic, and they're horrific. They were worse than that. They got treated worse than animals. And what he noticed in his study, because it was his nature to study things, was that who survived, who survived in the Holocaust. And he noticed that the people that survived were the ones that could find meaning. They could still find meaning in their lives. So that really hit a profound chord with me because it makes you think. It's like, wow, if people could find meaning in their lives during the Holocaust, like during the pinnacle of suffering and sorrow, what do I have to complain about? Absolutely nothing. There is absolutely nothing that isn't even remotely comparable to what the people in the Holocaust went through that I've experienced in my life. So dig in, face those scary parts of yourself, like those parts that they're impenetrable, like it's just impossible for you to conquer it, and then think about how many people have gone through so much worse than that. Really, like your biggest problem in the morning is you can't get up out of bed. At least you have a bed. Like your biggest problem in the morning is that you can't eat healthy food. Like you have food.
Right.
Put a little perspective on your life, and you'll be able to face the most difficult decisions that you have to make. I talked about my father earlier, but now the next most difficult obstacle I'm facing is forgiveness with him, and that's taking a lot out of me to even consider it. My little brother was able to do it, but I don't know. It's incredibly difficult for me, but I just need to think about it, and I have to put it in perspective again. Some people don't have a father, they don't have parents, good or bad, he'll always be my blood. These are the kind of things that you have to kind of think about, even in the most darkest parts of your life. So,
and some of these things can actually hold you back from accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish. I mean, when you have something that's holding you, not holding you, but it's sort of weighing you down, it's sort of that extra load in your back pocket, and it just sits in the back of your mind all day, every day. Stuff like that can actually affect you from creating the things that you want to create for yourself.
Right. And, I feel like it's also part of human nature to put the difficult things on the back burner, but sometimes making those difficult decisions can make your life so much better. One of the difficult ones a lot of people face is their relationships, breaking up with a significant other. I get it. You loved that person a lot at one point, but people change, people grow, and you may not feel the same way anymore after a while. And that's okay. And that's something that a lot of people can't face with themselves. It's just that things change. Things won't always be the same. You can either grow or stay exactly the same. And then when your partner doesn't grow with you, it just makes it really hard. And then you're faced with that difficult decision. You notice you're fighting all the time. And something's got to give. What are you going to do? You're going to stay in a relationship that makes you miserable just because you've been together for so long? Or are you going to take action, take control of your life and make that change? Or, going to the gym in the morning. Are you going to just accept that your clothes don't fit the way you want them to anymore, that your cholesterol is what it is, your mile time will never change, that you can't. I've always been rebellious, so my advice would be is to find that rebellious part of yourself and just listen to him or her,
Yeah.
feed it, let it grow, let it get in your ear, just keep listening to that voice until you actually start rebelling a little bit, because you're not a sheep. Don't be one.
And don't accept anything, really. I mean, don't wake up and go, "Oh, my clothes don't fit," but I accept it. I accept that. Don't want. So, do you think raising your standards also has something to do with habit change?
100%. And the standard that I try to live by is does the thing that I'm doing, is the thing that I'm doing right now, is it making me happy? And that's my standard. Sure, not everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows in your life, but you have to think, okay, how can I improve my happiness? My standard is happiness, and I'm trying my best to achieve that standard. And it's a long-term game that you have to build towards to achieve, but you have to set your standards high because you don't want to settle for normal. Like Mike was talking about before, like just like how society perceives you with certain things, like peer pressure. Like, you know, you see the Instagram model that's ripped, and like, you know, guys have a lot of body image issues that we face too, like, and girls do too, and like
It
neither
happens.
party has to be undermined.
That
in
stuff
that
happens
challenge.
more so with guys than I think it does with girls.
Like, Like, I don't know. Like,
there's a lot
I
of
don't
body
want to say
shaming
that.
going on with guys.
Body shaming is a unisex topic. You know, it's
Agreed.
equal. I want to
Yeah.
say it's equal.
It is.
Because let's take it from a realistic perspective.
But
Like,
people don't acknowledge
they don't acknowledge that it's equal.
that it's equal. They just think
Right.
Like,
One
oh,
side
guys
thinks, like one side thinks that the other side has it worse or easier or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
like, you got to separate from all that, like, and separate again. So like, the first thing you have to separate from is who has it worse. Like, that doesn't matter. The fact is that it's a standard that it's an unrealistic standard that society presses on you, and it hurts because you're not living that standard. But then you have to think, why do I care? Like, why do I care that Ryan Gosling has a six pack, or Chris Pratt suddenly lost 50 pounds? He got ripped for Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, you want to know what their secret diet was? They got paid like millions of dollars to get ripped.
to eat chicken,
I'm like,
chicken and broccoli.
like,
for
shit.
6
I'm
weeks.
like, I would join that diet today if I could. Like,
Yeah.
But like, the thing is like, don't hold yourself to those standards with photo editing, all these ridiculous things. Like, you got to live to your standards. Like, if you keep playing this comparison game with what everyone else has and what you don't have, you're just going to be miserable all the time, and you're going to find yourself in the rat race for some sort of self-fulfillment that's just, it's a material thing or something that's just external to you, not necessarily something you always wanted. Like if the meaning in your life is to have a six-pack, like, think bigger. Like
yeah, because
seriously.
as soon as you get that six pack,
You're
just
done.
You're gonna run out of road. But you brought up the like watching people and being overly like, concerned or envious about what people have and what you don't have. That right there, like, wake up. Like, that's a habit right there.
Right.
And that's a bad habit because you're focusing so much on the stuff that you don't have versus what you do have. And I had to make that change for myself. Not that I was like staring at Ryan Gosling's abs all day on Instagram.
I mean, I wouldn't judge you if you were.
I mean,
But-
they're pretty amazing. But I was constantly on social media, and I was constantly thumbing through, and I was looking for I was looking for the people to follow, and I'm like watching the stuff that I like and looking at the photos that I liked, and without even realizing it, we kind of take bias on our social media already because we don't want to look at things that we're opposed to or that would be offensive to us. We automatically look at what's going to make us feel right. And
what we agree with.
right, exactly, what we agree with. So
That's why you can't have a meaningful debate with anyone these days because
Yeah.
everyone just responds. Like, they respond for the sake of arguing. They don't respond after listening.
right,
So,
and they don't. The whole point of a debate and the whole point of an argument is to hear each other out.
right.
That's the whole reason why we have debates. And it's not to... I don't get into a debate with someone to prove to them that I'm right,
You're to
nor
learn.
should it be the other way around.
Right.
You should be hearing other perspectives, and at the end of the conversation, if you don't agree with that person and they don't agree with you, you should at least respect them because they respected what you had to say,
Right.
and vice versa.
There's a good quote that I like about that, and it's, you're not entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to an informed opinion. Just because you have an opinion about something
That's the worst.
doesn't mean you're right.
That's the worst
Like-
thing. People form opinions based on other people's dogma.
Yeah,
It pisses
oh
me
my
off.
god, all the time. Like, you watch the news, you heard it once, it must be true. So,
Or
you
you just heard it through
regurgitate.
Facebook.
Yeah, you regurgitate whatever your parents say, whatever. But like, you gotta be willing to go to the dark side. Like, kind of just see what other people have to say about things. Like, maybe there's some sort of reasonability behind it. Maybe there's not. Like, but at least consider what's going on. So like with your your social media and your Instagram feed, like just like don't be so boring that you only follow one thing and one thing only, and you care so much
Look
about
for things that challenge your current point of view and your current
right.
thought process.
Think bigger. Who cares what Kim Kardashian was wearing today? Like, did you know about X happening and like around the world? Like, oh, global warming's a thing, but Kim Kardashian's having a child.
Well,
Like,
you know what was shocking to me? One of the classes that I took in college, we did a survey, and one of the questions on the survey was ranking us on global awareness, and a lot of students, they
bomb it.
They bombed it. They put like 1s and 2s on a scale of 1 to 10. They put 1s and 2s for their level of global awareness, and when they present it, we had to present why we thought we got such rankings.
Right.
And everyone was like, and I was honest with myself. I gave myself like a 4 or 5 because I don't watch the news all the time. This shit's depressing.
It is.
And so every now and then I thumb across an article that has something to do with what's going on in today's Washington, but almost the entire class, when they got up to explain why they gave themselves such a low mark, they literally said, well, I get all my news from social media. The danger that has, like, people don't understand.
There's a lot of, like, fake articles out there.
Video editing is real. Audio editing is real. Like, when I edit this show, there's a lot of points that, like, are cut out and then glued together, and it almost sounds seamless. So people can edit things. People can manipulate video, audio.
Or some people just blatantly lie.
And right, exactly. And people, you can't. I don't even know if you can trust half the shit that you read on the internet.
I mean, Abraham Lincoln had a quote about that. No, but like, I don't know. Like, we're not trying to get like too sidetracked here.
No. But like I respect someone who reads whatever they read and then they formulate their own opinion based on the research they've done. I don't
an informed opinion.
I'll say it straight.
You understand what we're saying, though.
Yeah.
Like at the bulk of it all is just like if you're gonna have an opinion on anything, make sure you're informed. Like I talked about ketosis a little bit in the last podcast. Like my opinion on that is because I've listened to podcasts about it, like on like the Tim Ferriss show, where he brought like experts on, and they talked about the research behind ketosis, and people that run like ketosis supplement companies, like Ketokana, and like things like that. Like
Ketokana.
Yeah, Ketokana. It's pretty badass
nice,
name, but like Katana or Katanas if you like Deadpool, but like I don't know, like information's key, but you have to have the skepticism when you're researching it, like the skepticism to like decipher what's real and what's not.
Don't believe everything that you see right away.
It can't be opinion based. Like question your sources. Like like you won't catch me writing like a peer studied article on like cancer research or something like that, because I'm an accountant, not a bio major. Like like stay within reach of reality when you start making your opinions, and like don't argue with the experts. Like
that's another habit too that people get into. People get into this habit of I guess because they don't really believe in themselves that they can do the research. They kind of just read one thing and go, "Oh, well, this was published on PubMed, so I guess it's correct. I guess it's accurate. Oh, let's run with it." That's and stuff like that. Kind of like it ticks me off because I'll read at least 10 articles on the same thing before I actually like come down to something.
Right. And I mean, like some people will read, like I've seen it, like 10 reasons why lazy people are actually the most successful people in the world, or like 10 reasons why being late everywhere is a sign that you're actually going to be rich. Like look, like it's clickbait. Like come on, like do better than that. Like there are no 10 reasons why being late is better.
And that's the thing with social media is that it's
so easy to be targeted for your belief systems and your opinions and be fed through like a sales funnel.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's a market.
It's a giant sales funnel.
And so I read this book over the summer called Deep Work by Dr. Cal Newport.
Okay.
And it changed my perspective on social media and how it is. And I stopped using social media so much for my own recreational use. I started using it for a purpose and not just for my own entertainment. And because I realized it was starting to suck up a lot of my time, and I started to realize, like, I was losing what's right in front of me. Like those precious moments in life, you're no longer enjoying because you're so concerned about who's posting what on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And
how many likes you're getting.
right, exactly. You get sucked into this. How many likes am I getting? Who's
It's
commenting?
narcissistic behavior.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And he says that in the book, that it's narcissism.
Oh, all right.
And people who are so concerned with the amount of likes and the amount of this that they're getting. Look, it's one thing if you're marketing and that's your job. Your job is to do analytics and see who's doing what. But someone who's doing it just to fill their ego, they're exactly that. They're narcissists. But the book talks about going on like an internet sabbatical.
Okay.
Which is it's like shutting off from all things social media, all things internet for a time period. Say like a month or 3 months.
Like a
or 6
detox,
months.
basically.
Right. It's like a detox. And so the whole premise of deep work is to just basically get into the habit of getting into such a deep focus where you're able to conquer cognitively demanding tasks.
Okay.
And just get shit done. And get it done in a distracting world. And I did exactly that. And I hopped off social media for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately started feeling happier. Like my mood elevated.
Yeah, because your
I started
happiness didn't depend on other people.
Right. I started having more conversations with people in public. I started talking to people,
Right.
And you do realize, like, it's very, very hard to break a habit because a lot of habits are like addictions. So, like, there were times where, like, my phone would be out on the table. Now, I deleted all my social media apps. I still have my accounts, but I deleted the apps so I wouldn't be tempted to go in
on
there.
your phone? That's pretty interesting.
But even my phone just sitting out
makes you want to reach for it.
You look at it and you're like, oh, man, I want to just want to check my Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to break that habit. But now it's like I'm at the point where, like, when I go out, I can leave my phone somewhere.
Yeah,
and, like, not worry about it. But like you said something about you brought up the attention part of it. All social media is, and like you brought up the clickbait.
Yeah.
All social media is trading your attention
for time
for their data.
Yeah. So
they know who to market to, and the more that you are on their sites,
you're just building you have your profile, but you're building a sales profile.
Right. Exactly. Like they're looking to sell shit to you, but the more that you're on their website, the better that company does. So you have to realize something, that the lies that you read on the internet, on social media, all the misguided crap about politics, about health, nutrition, fitness, guys, they're trying to sell something to you.
Right.
So there's no like, oh, download this free PDF to get the free
life hacks.
Yeah. Eventually, that's what happened to me. I got sucked into this thing called AWOL Academy, and you watch the ad. You're like, okay, I'll see what this is about. You click on it. They're like, download this free PDF. So I downloaded the free PDF, and then they send you to this webinar.
Like 8 billion emails later.
Right, and they bombard you with emails. And
like, this is your last chance at our best deal ever. And like you get like 40 more last chances.
Yeah, but you get into it, and then they're like, there it is. Like, you have to buy. Right, there's a sales pitch. Some people go for it, some people don't. I, like an idiot, I went for it. And I thought, like, okay, maybe online marketing is something that I could get into.
But why did you go for it?
The amount of money, right. So why I went for it.
Motivation,
but it was really, like, money is a bitch.
Yeah.
Right. At that point, I'm like, I'm not really making any money as a personal trainer right now. My job sucks. Like, personal training doesn't suck, but I was also working. I was a desk employee at that gym, and things weren't necessarily going so great. Like, the environment wasn't that great. And so it was just kind of like, I'm making shit money. The pay system for personal trainers there was awful. So, like, I wasn't I wasn't doing as well as I wanted to, and
So
online,
you looked for that opportunity.
right here
The
came
sales pitch
this
came.
opportunity. The sales pitch came. I'm like, $100, no problem.
Yeah.
Then they wanted $10,000. Then they wanted $17,000.
Yeah.
Because it was like some high class
Like people laugh
thing.
at like
Yeah.
the obviousness of like the Nigerian scammers like the princes over there that I will send you $1 billion to
I
your
just
bank
need
account.
your
And
social
it's just-
security
right.
number.
Like but like we fall into these traps all the time.
Like the IRS calling your house.
Oh my god! Okay, as an accountant, I'm telling you this: the IRS will never
call your house.
ever call you and be like, "You need to pay over the phone." That will never happen. I promise. If it does, ask them for the last 4 digits of your security number. They won't know, but they should know. But
social media is
look,
it's a habit. Like whether you realize it or not. And one of the changes that I had to make was not looking or checking my phone as soon as I got up, because I use my phone as my alarm clock. And granted, I should just get a regular alarm clock, but I used to get up and the first thing I would do is check my phone, text people, do whatever. But that was the biggest change that I made, was just putting the phone away, interacting with people, and I think it led to how happy I am today at this moment, or how successful I am right now, or this far, is because I stopped allowing myself to be so consumed and distracted, right? And like it allows me to get work done, and I think it would allow other people to get work done as well.
yeah.
So,
like I have a very lone wolf mentality when it comes to all things. Like I really don't live for the approval of others. I could really care less. I live to my standards, and I do my best to achieve them. So try to think of it like that. Like walk away from the herd. Like don't concern yourselves with what everyone else is doing because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect your life. No celebrity is doing something that's going to affect your life, period. Like, you have to take stock in your own values and the things that are important to you in your life. So shut out the external. Like, shut out the opinions of others. Shut out people that are just hurting you and giving you this negative feedback that discourages you and makes you feel like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
So walk away. Walk away from your phone. Walk away from that person that makes you feel bad. Walk away from that job that you just hate. Like, you don't have to live your life like that. Like, I always stop and think to myself, I'm like, I am 100% in control of my own life and where I go from here. Everything that I do is a choice. Everything that I do is because I decided that's what I wanted to do. I decide what my life is going to be like. So rather than looking for the life hack or the easy solution or, the 7 steps to becoming a billionaire or all that kind of garbage, start working harder. And, work harder, work smarter, whatever. Do both. Just work hard. And, not on meaningless shit. Like, try to create something. Create content. Like, if you're the creative type, you all must have something that you're passionate about. Like, you have to. You're a human being. It's in your nature. That's a routine in itself. But, what are we going to do? We constantly go in the routine of putting our passions and our dreams on the back burner of life and tell ourselves oh, well, when I'm at X point in life and I've saved up X amount of money, sure, maybe I'll be good enough then, to do, start living my dreams or, but if you keep living like that and you keep putting a post date on everything that you want to accomplish in life, you're just going to realize you're going to keep pushing that date further and further back, and it's become more and more difficult to achieve because your responsibilities, they don't get, it's not a shorter list every year. It gets longer and longer until you have a mortgage and kids, and you're just having an existential crisis because you never took the time to follow your dreams. So prevent that. Start caring right now. And even if you're in that situation, all right, you have a mortgage and kids, sure, it's a little harder to get there, but you can still do it. Don't sell yourself short. Stop that internal voice that just keeps telling you oh, maybe if I tried this 10 years ago, or like, like I'm 50, I've been smoking cigarettes for 20 years, like I'll never stop now. I'm like, it's way too late for me. Like, don't think like that. Like, age doesn't define what you're capable of doing anymore. Like, like age shouldn't define your habits. You shouldn't be, well, I'm just a certain way now, and I guess I'm gonna live the rest of my days like this. I'm like, if you're 50, like you're not old. Like,
Yeah.
you could easily have another 100, not 100 years, but like another like 50 years on your life. Like, you have more time. Is one of my point is like,
Yeah.
you're not done. Never be done with living, and never be done with growing. Like,
So one of the things that comes along with growing, do you think people can change?
absolutely. Like, people can change if the change starts from within themselves.
Yeah.
If you're changing because someone suggested that you should or whatever, like, even if the suggestion is like good intentioned, it's not enough.
Yeah, I think if you change for someone else or something else, it doesn't last very long. So you have to. I don't think there's any other way around it. You have to change for yourself. But I kind of have to disagree with you on that because I think yes and no. People can change, but they also can't. At the end of the day, you can change, but I think what really happens is you just get better at listening to those certain narratives in your head. And so you still have deep down inside, like, man, if I see someone smoking, I want to smoke. But you choose not to. And I think you just get better at fighting that battle and shutting that voice in your head down. I forget who mentioned it, but it was someone who has reached tremendous success. I want to say it was Tony Robbins. I'm not sure, but he or she mentioned that, like, you never get rid of your demons. You just get so much better at shutting them down and turning them off. So that's my whole thing on it is I don't think you can change. You can only improve. And the baggage that you got behind you or inside you, you just get better at turning it off or suppressing it rather. But yeah,
That's a fair way to look at it. Like, I like to believe that people can grow and become something better, but a lot of it is nature versus nurture, and like some parts of your nature just are always going to be there. So it comes to being aware of it and maybe shutting it off at times. Sure, I can believe that. Like, what I think what we want to leave you with at the end of the day, and it's coming to that time where we should wrap up.
Yep.
It's that, like, my strong belief is that strength is a choice. Right? You can choose to live your life with strength, or just follow the voice of weakness and listen to it every day and stay comfortable. Because choosing to, whether it be like sleep that extra hour, or stay in that relationship that doesn't make you happy, or stay at that job that just makes you miserable, it may seem easy in the moment, but in the long run, it just hurts so much more. So make the choices that are rooted in strength and that build you a foundation towards the person you want to become in life.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we all have choices, and we all are capable of making those choices. Real quick, I overheard someone talking in the school library once, talking about how they grew up in a bad neighborhood. Mother worked 2-3 jobs just to stay afloat. Like, the kid was lucky that he got a scholarship to come to school, and all he kept saying was, man, I'm screwed. When I get out of here, I'm screwed, because I'm from a shitty area. Like, I'm poor. I can't really afford, I hardly have 2 nickels to rub together, but the only reason I'm here is because I got a scholarship. And I walked over to the kid and I said, listen, I don't mean to butt in or, stick my nose in other people's conversations, but I said to him, you have a choice to make. And that choice is, when you get out of here, are you going to go back to your old standard of living?
Right.
Are you going to allow yourself to get sucked down by the environment around you? Like, why do you think you got that scholarship to be here? Because you made the choice to take a test or write a paper or send someone an email, which landed you this opportunity in this position.
To better yourself.
To better yourself. So you have a choice. And so I told him, I said, and I was very blunt with the kid. I said, I'm a little like disheartened to hear you say that you're screwed because you're not from
a rich
area and you're a minority and you have all these things stacked up against you.
Right.
And it's like,
you're still in college.
I think, like,
despite all that.
Look, you have choices, and it doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how much money you make. You have choices to be where you're at. Your habits are also a mindset. Like, if you every day think, oh, this is my current circumstance, and this is the way it's going to be, and it'll never change, get out of that habit of thinking like that. So that's my last bit of ranting. I think we did cover the points of the best way to break old habits is to be self-aware, to learn about who you are and kind of embrace that.
And then learn how to conquer those parts of yourself that you just don't want there anymore.
And the self-doubt.
Right.
And prepare to... Because a lot of habits that you change in your life, they might not be little ones. They might be very big ones. And those big ones might be to work extra hours to get to where you want to get to in life. And that might mean sacrificing time with friends, family, and loved ones. And you're making that change because you're raising your standard. You want a better life for yourself. And you want something for yourself.
Right.
So, but be prepared to be misunderstood. And I think that, yeah, did I miss any points that we hit on? All right, so thank you guys so much for listening. It means the world to us. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you give us a like, follow, share us on YouTube, Facebook. And if you have any questions or any topics that you want to hear us talk about, send us a DM, send us a message, let us know, and we'll be sure to put it into an episode. And for the next episode, if you join us on episode 3,
we're going to talk about overcoming our failures, setting up a game plan for success, and then just battling with that negative self-image that some of us may have. So tune in next week for our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. See you then.